afternoon, and welcome back to Musings of the Soul. It's a rainy Saturday afternoon, and I hadn't planned on doing this episode. I just felt like doing it about an hour ago before I headed to the store. So I decided to just go with it, flow with it, and see what happens. And yeah, let's talk about dance. It's one of my passions. And more specifically, when I talk about dance, I want to speak about how dance can be this gateway to deeper self-awareness. And to be even more specific than that, when I say awareness or this feeling of really feeling awake, for example, when I say awareness in this sense, I'm talking about the felt sense in your bodies. But let's just get into that and it'll all make sense. I hope. I'm just gonna flow with it. So I'm not gonna go into my journey with dance, but I'm just gonna share with you guys an incident that happened on my birthday in May. I had gone to this event with my boyfriend, and he was DJing there, and there were other DJs as well. Without making the story too long or getting into details that are not so relevant, there was a DJ who was playing there, and I had been dancing for a while, and when he started playing, I was still dancing along, and then something happened, which, because I've been dancing at different events since last year, I'm able to notice it when it happens. I got deeper into the music, deeper into the dance, and deeper into my own body. And it was very visceral. Like, I couldn't not notice it. I noticed it exactly the moment it happened, where I was like, whoa, I was awake, I was aware, my senses were heightened. I think that's the best description. My senses were heightened, and it felt like being super present, being so there in the moment, in the dance, in the music, that it was just like, wow. And I think this wow feeling when you get in that moment is because most of the time I'm not in that vibe. Yes, I'm present like right now, but the deeper you go, the more it expands, right? And so that intensifies the feeling to the point where it becomes this wow moment. And so I reckon if I could maintain that wow moment for longer periods of time, it stops being wow and it starts being my normal state of being. It's not my current normal state of being. So that's why it feels so impactful. But in that moment, yeah, I was so present with the dance. I was so present with everything that was going on in the music and myself, and another aspect of what happened there was this sense of freedom. Like, I felt so free. Like, I felt like that was really me in my most truest sense. And I want to be wary of using the word freedom to some degree, because I don't feel like freedom means that I can do whatever I want and I give a fuck about blah blah blah. Like, freedom in the sense of I can be me. That's what I mean when I say I felt free. Free to be me. I felt like I could be totally myself. And not that I could be, but I was totally myself, and it was such a beautiful reflection for me to witness myself in that moment. I was both me, and I was witnessing me as me. And it was so beautiful that it really felt like the beginning of something. It really truly felt like the beginning of something. And when I look back and reflect back on that day and the dance itself and what happened, I was dancing with my partner from time to time. But what was happening there too was I felt like I just could move with the music and do whatever, in the sense of however my body and my soul felt like moving, I moved there. I was there in the energy, in the vibe, not caring so much about the people who were around dancing. Some of them were as wild as me, and I could recognize them instantly. I even had a point where I was running back and forth from one end to the other, and I would notice those who were sort of on the same vibe as me, open as me, and I danced with them and I saw them, and then I could also spot those who were a bit shy and maybe a bit I wouldn't say scared, but like overwhelmed at how intense my expression was. And I could recognize myself in that, because I remember the times when that used to be me, where I would see people just in their wildness, and that would like, oh, it would not, yeah, it would sort of irk me and make me just want to hide away and be like, oh my god, that's too much. But because I've now tasted the other side of that spectrum, I can appreciate both sides. I can appreciate those who are a bit cautious and laid back and shy, maybe. And I can also appreciate those who are wild, because I've tasted my own wildness. And it was very interesting to see and dance with others in that way. I think that was the very first time in my life where I felt the freedom to be me and dance with other women who were present in the way that I did. I'd never done that before. Not that I can remember, but I'm pretty sure my boyfriend would correct me if he ever heard this. Maybe I have, but I don't think I have, as far as I can tell. And it was so freeing, and even dancing with him, with my partner. We have danced together so many times, and each time is different. I feel like every time we go deeper and deeper in our processes together, and things come up, sometimes very intense and difficult, other times really delicious and yummy and amazing stuff in the dance, in the flow. And what I noticed this time with him, something too that I think was also a first, as in my awareness of what had taken place there, was when we were dancing, we reached a point where, from my point of view, from where I was in my embodied state, I felt like I was flowing with him. Like, it was, if you think of a river, of a body of water, we were like the water flowing with each other back and forth, to the point where I reached a state where I didn't know who was leading who. It felt like we were so intertwined in our movements, and I felt like a surrender to him that I'd never felt before. Like, I literally felt like I could relax into him and just surrender. And when I did, I just could like be led by him, and I could feel him. I could feel me and us together. And yeah, I literally didn't know who was leading who anymore. Like, I felt my own surrender and being held by him, but I also felt like there was a beautiful dance there. And I remember one moment in particular, I had my eyes closed, but I could still feel him. And I remember him at one point asking, like, not even asking, he was guiding me to sit down, because there was someone who was going to do a dance, I think a fire dance or something, I don't quite remember. My eyes were closed, so I hadn't even seen that that had been happening. But I let him guide me and lead me, and we like turned and we like I sat in front of him and he was behind me, and we were like just moving in that state, and it felt like a beautiful symbiosis, and it's very tricky to describe the feeling of this. It's There's certain things that you have to feel in order to really know what is being talked about. And this is one of those things. If you haven't felt it before, it will just be this mental perception. But it's like a lived thing. It's an experienced and embodied and felt sensation. And it was so beautiful and so wonderful. And even after that, when the fire dance thing was over and the dance floor was opened up again, and we went into that dance, and I was in my essence, and he went around. He was gone talking to whatever, but I felt like what I usually would feel sometimes, that feeling of being abandoned, like, oh, he doesn't want to dance with me anymore, he's going to talk to other people, and then jealousy would like come up. But in this instance, it was a very tiny level of it. It was like, oh, I recognize that. This is where I would normally feel contraction and feel abandoned. But in that state, it was more like, oh, I can let him go, because I know that him and I are one in a sense. Like, letting him go and be doesn't mean that we are parting ways in that sense of the word. And I had this knowing that I could just relax and be in myself, and if I needed him, I could just look at him. Like, and that's literally what I did. I don't know where I was getting all these ideas from or whatever, but I looked at him from a distance at one point, and my energy was just calling him to me. Like, it literally felt that way. I didn't have to say anything. I just knew that there was this way I could just rest in, and I could call him to me. And I was watching him while he was talking, and we shared a glance before I went into this. Oh, okay, let me just. I just called him to me, not from a mental position. This was happening really quick. It was more from an intuitive knowing. It's not something I like was making up or trying to figure out in my mind, but I rested into that, and I was like, yeah, calling him to me, and I looked at him, and all of a sudden he looked at me, and he started slowly coming towards me. And boy, that was like, whoo, nothing I've ever experienced before. And and all of a sudden it was just me and him. Like, in my mind, it was just me and him coming towards me, and I was there dancing and looking at him, and and then he approached, and I moved a bit forward too, and we reunited and danced, and all the good things. And that was such a magical experience for me on my birthday. On my birthday. What a way to enter a new portal into life. It felt like a new portal for me. A new awareness of what is possible for me, but maybe even for you who is listening to this. The possibilities are endless. We are the only ones who limit ourselves in regards to what we think we can achieve, what we think we are able to do in this life. But in that dance, I felt expanded. My awareness was literally heightened. And I could feel him, I could feel our expansiveness and the dance between us, and that there is like more. There is like, literally, there are no limits. And that was so powerful. And I'm still in the process of digesting this. But what it brought back to me, and what I was desiring to share, is precisely how dance can bring us into deeper awareness of ourselves and of others. It can bring us there. And it really requires that we let go of the discomfort, as in, don't be attached to it. Because, like, there was a time in my life where I wouldn't want to dance because it felt very uncomfortable dancing in the presence of other people. I could dance in the privacy of my own home and in my room, but dancing with other people was a challenge. If I hadn't, I wouldn't say confronted, but if I hadn't moved despite of the discomfort, then I wouldn't have been where I am today. You know, life is uncomfortable sometimes. And I remember just recently, one of the breath workers I follow mentioned how, you know, we don't have to be in pain. Life and growth doesn't necessarily have to equal pain. And I agree with that. And so in regards to dance, uncomfortable, yes, life can be uncomfortable. Dancing in public among other people can be uncomfortable. It doesn't have to be painful. It's not painful, but it can be uncomfortable. However, we are not meant to run away from things that are uncomfortable. You know, the fact that they're even present in our midst is an invitation to go there, an invitation to meet the discomfort and be with it until it no longer has a hold on us, until we no longer are paralyzed by its presence. And this is what has been happening for me in terms of dance. The more I have been putting myself, thanks to my partner, in situations that bring up discomfort, like dancing in public, the more I have met this discomfort face to face and moved with it, in spite of it. And it's not to say that I no longer feel discomfort. It does surface, especially in the beginning. Like if I go to a dance event and, you know, music starts and then I'm on the dance floor, the first couple of minutes, I don't know how long that would last, but the first couple of minutes there is a discomfort, yes. But I no longer feel paralyzed by it. It no longer stops me from dancing. Whereas before it would, I would just rock back and forth and be up in my mind, letting my mind dictate. Whereas now I can meet the discomfort. Yeah, it's there, but I'm going to keep moving anyway. I'm going to keep dancing because I know what's on the other side of that discomfort. I know. And when you know what's on the other side, and you know how good it is, where you are now, before you reach the other side, is no longer a threat. It's only a threat when you don't know how it feels to be on the other side of that scale, or on the other side of that wall. So, if anything, I would encourage you to meet your discomfort. Meet it at the level that is comfortable for you. It's weird using the same term, but I mean take one step at a time. You don't need to throw yourself into a situation and then end up feeling so unsafe that you never want to do it again. Like baby steps, you know. I am high on, you know, slow and steady wins the race. You know, maybe it's a Taurus thing. Go figure. But I've never been someone who subscribes to the notion of just pushing through shit, because I've seen what that does when I've done it, and it's so not me. It would be going against my design. It's going against what actually feels nourishing and good for me. I've pushed through pain before. I've pushed through a lot of things, like being at work and you're having period cramps. Push through that shit. Done that. Doesn't help. All that does is you're just not listening to your body. Pushing through it doesn't make you a hero, Again, nuances to this. This is my perspective, my opinion, my view. However, for me, I feel like, yes, life can be full of discomfort. It doesn't have to be full of pain, like the breath worker I follow, Elizabeth Finocchiaro, said once. And so, gosh, dance is an amazing thing. And, there is another aspect of this that is related to intimacy, like sex, that I'm finding very fascinated by. That came up actually today when I was thinking of doing this podcast. There are a couple of women that I follow who talk a lot about, intimacy and sex, and women being aware of, their bodies, what gives them pleasure, and all of those things. And there's a woman in particular who talks a lot about, orgasms, and not just the clitoral orgasms, the cervix orgasms, the full body orgasms. And it's interesting because I'm not going to go too much into detail about this, but when it comes to all this sex talk, the only thing that I can relate to it is actually with dance. I feel like what they talk about in regards to sex and intimacy and pleasure, those things I have actually felt when I'm dancing, especially the dances that have lasted for hours. I've been to events where, what's going on with my camera? Right, for those of you who are only listening to this podcast, I'm also recording it because I've just gotten into this vibe. This is the second time I've recorded myself, as well as recording the podcast. But there's something going on with the camera. I have no idea what, but whatever. Let's just roll with it. So, when it comes to sex or the pleasure that you feel during sex, I feel like what they talk about, these women that you're supposed to experience with a partner, these full-bodied orgasms, I feel like I experience that when I'm dancing. Like, that high lasts for hours afterwards. And even in the dance itself, for example, when me and my partner were dancing, and that meeting, that connection that we have, I feel like it is the same type of connection that these women talk about when they're talking about that one-on-one sexual intercourse between a partner, right? So I'm fascinated by that, and I'm not sure how true it is because I can't ever remember if I've ever had a full-bodied orgasm. I don't know. I think I've experienced it once on my own, and it was such a shock when it happened that I don't know if that was what it is. I don't know. It felt like it, like my senses were so heightened. So I think it was that. But I've never experienced it ever again. That was the one and only time. However, like I said, with dance, I feel like it's the same type of energy. And because with dance, it requires you to surrender. You can't, if you are in a judgmental state with yourself, with your body, and you're stuck in your mind, then you won't be able to reach the depths of dance and movement that might be capable of reaching if you let go of all those judgments and all those thoughts. A surrender is sort of required, surrendering to the process and allowing yourself to move however way you want to move without any judgments whatsoever. I feel like that is required in order to go deeper. And so that's an openness and a surrender, right, to what is. Seriously, what is going on with this camera? Okay, so apologies if you're only listening to me talking. I'm just gonna have a sip of some juice here. So yeah, a surrender is required in dance, and I feel like the same is true in intimacy. When you are with your partner, I was listening to Esther Perel a few weeks back. She was doing a talk where she was talking about eroticism and pleasure. And one of the things she said that caught my attention was that in order for a woman to experience orgasm, she has to be in her body. A certain level of egotism needs to exist, because if you are not in your body, you won't be able to feel the pleasure that arises from your body. So you cannot be invested in only your partner and only pleasing them, because then you're no longer in your body, you're only focused on the outward. And so you have to be able to be in your body in order to actually experience orgasm. That is a requirement. Being in your body is a must. There is no way around that, okay? And so that really hit home, and this is exactly what I feel like, because in dance, I'm able to be in my body fully. I can flow with whatever is arising to the point where, I reach this openness, and, especially if I'm dancing for hours and hours and hours, then the creativity that arises in my movements is astounding. I wish I could record it, I wish there was a way that it was all recorded, but some things are not meant to be recorded, I guess. But the most profound dances I've had have been dances that I danced for hours, like 5, 6, maybe even 7 hours. I have no idea. And it's more, for me, it's more about feeling the movements. Like, I feel how tuned in with the music I am, to the point where I literally am dancing the music, but also dancing my own expression of myself and the music. It's this beautiful interwoven thing that arises. And I remember the festival me and my boyfriend went to in the springtime. That's also an aspect that came through. Like, I was shocked by what was going on. Like, there was this very spirally sound that came through, and my body was, I had never heard this music before, and yet my body was spiraling with it in the exact moment and motion, whether it was going up, going down. I was so attuned to the music, my body. Not me, because me mentally, I don't know what's coming, but my body does, my intuition does. I was vibrating in a way. I guess I was on the same frequency as it, so I could move with the music. Whether it spirals down or up, there was no disruption. Like, it's like I just knew what was coming without knowing what was coming, and that was like, it shocked me. And even when it started going fast, spiraling slow, down, up, like, I was with all of it. And it was mind-blowing for me to both experience it and just also feel into it and just be wowed by the whole experience. So it shows me that there's so much that is possible with movement. Like, you can tune into the music and express the music